Welcome to Talent Takeover
Unfiltered.
When it comes to working hard and keeping it real, we know our shit. Self-care, happiness, inner peace, and time. I'm Brianna Rooney, and this is Taylor Bradley.
Hey, y'all.
And we have thrived in chaos and turned it into an art form. So Taylor, what are we doing here today?
We're here to give you a raw, under-the-hood view of all things recruiting and finally give credit where credit is due to a long underrated industry that's full of quote-unquote experts.
All right. Well, then let's take this show to the road. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Talent Takeover Unfiltered. We have another jamming episode. What up, Taylor? How you doing?
I like how you get more relaxed. How's your day going today? What up? It's good. It's good. It's a rainy day here in Dallas.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, no, I mean, I like it because then if I'm going to be in the house anyway, you know.
Okay, true.
Yeah.
It actually was raining over the weekend, and I dug it because I was like, oh, wow, we get to have just a chill day. We want to watch a movie, and it's okay. Because I feel like when it's sunny, it's like not okay to watch a movie inside. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I have the same guilt. Like, that's what we were talking like that. Okay, I got to entertain them. I got to entertain my kids. And I can't handle it if it's sunny outside and we're sitting indoors. But sometimes, like, that's what people, I mean, it's okay to chill for 2 hours. It's okay to chill and watch a movie for 2 hours. Everybody needs that time.
We're going to do an episode just on that.
Yeah. All the different ways that we chill and how we do it, where we do it. We got a park. We go to the grassy knoll with some margaritas and Mexican food. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is definitely something that I think is, dare I say, trending. Definitely for at least 6 months, I would say, maybe longer. But it's talking about employer branding. So I think more and more employers are finally like, oh, yeah, maybe I should train the recruiters on what our employee brand is. Hey, you know what? This is how we market now. I mean, think about how marketing has changed significantly in like the last just 2 years, I would say. It's pretty heavy. What do you think?
I agree. I would say the last, I don't know, maybe it was COVID when it really, like, I really feel like the shift happened. So, I mean, it feels like so easy to just be like, oh, that was 2 years ago. But it really, I mean, it wasn't 2 years ago. It seemed like it still was, you know?
Yeah, right.
But I really feel like COVID is when everything kind of shifted and you had to be, you know, in addition to remote work, it was more about like, okay, showcasing your brand to candidates, selling your brand to candidates. I do feel like we're now back in another market where it's an employer's market, you know, and we're back to, okay, candidate, you've got to sell me on your background and your experience versus it being kind of the other way that we saw it, which I don't even know why I keep referring to that because we had it for like a year and a half. It was like, it's that one relationship that you talked about that was not that good. It wasn't even that long. Like, what do you do?
You're romanticizing it.
So and it was like, it lasted for 5 seconds and, you know, 16 years of my career. But I definitely think that maybe it's more appeal to kind of candidates that you want because there is certain, like the AI and all of that, there are certain things that get really popular and then everybody's fighting. All these companies are fighting over those same candidates. Mm-hmm. But I think that ultimately the companies that have the best candidates and longevity as far as getting the best candidates and retaining the best candidates, they're consistently maintaining their employer brand. It's always important to them. It's not important to them because it's fad. You know, it's important to them all the time.
Yeah, I think about when DEI first really started coming out, and which is crazy because like IBM did it in the 80s. It's just, you know, now more hyper-focused, right?
Right.
But I would say like once those programs started really coming out and people were starting to develop them, like that was like the big thing to like pitch. Oh, look at this brand is really focused on inclusion and, you know, wants to be there for you. It wants work-life balance. Like all of that stuff definitely did happen after COVID, I would say. All of that, like all like the mental health. So I think that with attention to the mental health also came the attention to the brand and what it meant in its entirety, you know, like at its core, not just like what are we building, but why are we building it? I think became a lot more important. And then who we're building it with is even more important. And then I would even say, you know, I know we're going to do a show on personal branding because that's its own separate thing, but you're starting to see more and more companies market through people. as we see, like the TikToks, or I mean, we've been seeing that a bit. TikTok YouTubers, they're making so much money. OnlyFans, that's you.
Follow her at Brianna. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Maybe. No. We joke about that all the time. But yeah, so like I think it's just super interesting to see the trend of things and how brands are now talking, to candidates, and not just when they're looking, but like always. They're always now talking to them, and they're trying to, put humors and gifts and anything that's relatable, because, as we know, we're goldfish. What do we pay attention for 8 seconds or less?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, and that's what's appealing to everybody. Like you said, the TikToks and all of that, it's like doing it through other people. So a day in the life has always kind of been a thing, but it looks so different now with all the use of all this different social media avenues and whatnot. I think you can really showcase what a day in the life at a company looks like very easily. But that's a person's job, usually multiple people's job, to make that happen, to do like, here's what it's like to work here. Like it has to be important enough to an employer for it to be one person's job at least, or somebody's job is dedicated to showcasing the employer brand. In addition to like, that's not including like, social media and like the different marketing strategies. That's just like, what is it like to be an employee here is a thing all in itself, And the companies that do that really, really well, again, I feel like those are the companies that they've had strong brands. Even, pre-COVID, post-COVID, like they're the brands that stand the test of time. It's not the people that do it or the companies that do it when it's popular, and then when it's not, it fades out, and then they go back to caring and being brand conscious again. It's like, it's something that you should always care about, but it's not companies. They all don't, all the time. But yeah, I think as far as it being important to candidates, that's the question that I would ask is like, how important is the employer brand to a candidate now versus 2 years ago?
I think it's mega. I think that's one of the first questions is, what's their culture like? And I will tell you, I was talking to the founder a couple weeks ago, and that's my question now. My question is, how would you describe the culture of your company? And he sits back in his chair and he's like, oh, the word culture. What is that? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And he was like super sweet, right? But you could tell he was just annoyed with this word. He's like, let me tell you what it's like to work here, and let me tell you the type of people that I like here, and why we're going to continue to grab these people. And I was like, okay, let's hear it. But then out came this amazing, display of how truly inclusive they are there, and how much he loves thoughts and I don't want to say arguments, but more like discussions. Like really, he's like, I love people with opinions. I love having like us all having it out. We have people from 8 different countries. We have, like he just kind of like really went for it. But I thought it was interesting that he just didn't like the word culture because he just thought it was so vague. And and I was like, okay, well, let's take a step back here. How am I going to put this into a sheet, And so when I do talk to candidates, I'm like, hey, I got to ask you a question. How opinionated are you at work? Do you feel comfortable sharing your opinion and having others share it back? That's one of my questions now, because that's something that they value.
That would be, so that's a type of company that would be amazing for them to have like one of those DISC assessments, something like that. That's like, it's because candidates can tell you all day, oh, I'm super comfortable doing that. But like an assessment that actually determines that based on just asking you like, prioritize these 5 things. It's very interesting how they get to the results that they do with the questions that they ask, but it's pretty spot on as far as like how much of how assertive you are, what's your communication style, what's your attention to detail. I think those are, just to touch on an episode that we had before, I think those are really important tools for companies to put in place to ensure that they get the right fit. Like if culture is really, really important to you, then you should put those different tools in place to ensure that you are getting the right culture fit. And I mean, I know it's culture fit, culture add, whatever the case is. Somebody that can handle your culture, whatever that looks like, And I think it's also one thing to hear from the hiring manager what their culture is versus going and doing your own research and seeing what is Glassdoor, what do the reviews say their culture is. And don't look at the scheduled ones from candidates that interview. You can look at the ones that are from employees. It obviously says like current employee, previous employee. Like look at some of those and see what are the themes there. Because I do think that there is, I know everybody wants to hate on Glassdoor, but there really is some pretty powerful information there. Like I kind of believe that everything is based on a little bit of truth with anything, right? Like it starts somewhere. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And so I do think that if you saw on Glassdoor that they had 10 reviews that were all negative and all kind of negative surrounding the same topic.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, it's probably true. It's probably not one person coming up with 10 different email addresses and who's put a reminder on their calendar to every 6 months go put a shit review on this company. Like that's probably not what's happening. They're probably true. So I do think that the responsibility has to also be on the candidate to do your homework on the employer and their brand. And that's something I haven't always done a good job about. So that's like, I want to throw that back out there to people because as we, you know better, you do better. And this is something that maybe I would have, I don't know, a year ago, had a different thought on or different perspective on or even different advice on. But I definitely think, doing your homework, if culture is really, really important to you and you're not in a place where, because this is why I was asking the question, like proposing the question, what's more important for TA candidates in today's world? Just getting a job because you need a job? Or are we still placing value and importance and emphasis on culture? So if you went through an interview process, and I'm really posing this question to our listeners, so I would love to hear from you guys because I truly want to know your thoughts on this. But if you were to go through the interview process and you're like, I don't feel like your spidey senses were telling you this was off, but you really needed a job, what would you place as the more important, higher importance on? Having a job and getting a job, or is the culture still going to be the most important thing to you?
Mm-hmm.
With what we're seeing in the current market.
And it's all based on their current financial situation. Like at the end of the day, although we could also fight that and say, well, if you were to give all your energy and power somewhere else to find what you're looking for, would you find it sooner as opposed to now you're going to get in a rut, you're going to be de-energized, you're going to be upset. You know what I mean? We could actually, so if you guys didn't listen to the episode on how to re-energize your career, you really, really need to. Taylor and I got very, very raw. And but Taylor, you were talking about your pros and cons list in that episode, and it would be a really interesting another episode kind of follow-up on let's actually go through a pros and cons of choosing different things with your job search with, and it's like, hey, here's what could happen. Here's what could happen over here. And here's what did happen. I don't know. It's kind of putting you on the spot, but
no, I have so many thoughts on that because again, guys, we're like living this stuff with y'all. So whenever we talk about these things, I think that my answer would have been different. My answer would have been different a year ago to this question, the same question that I'm posing to our listeners. My answer would have been different than it is today. And I do think exactly like what you said, and we've had that conversation, is that like there's no dollar amount that you can place on your mental health. And that when you get burnt out, like I don't know about anybody else, but when I get burnt out, I get like comatose. I get the decision fatigue. I get, that I was actually talking to my sister about this. I was like, do you ever just feel like you have so much to do that you're just like, where the fuck do I even start? And so you do nothing.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. Because it's just like,
I choose TV.
No, it's like, I don't even know where to start. I feel so overwhelmed by the amount of choices of different things that I have to do choices. Like it's anything fun. I mean, it's kind of in our day-to-day life, whether it's work or what we have to do for our household, kids, stuff like that. That it's like, none of this shit is stuff that I'm like, yeah, I get to go do this today. But it's like, I have so much of one thing to do in one area or something that I'm just like, oh my God.
I'm telling you, I feel like every time I go to the Cheesecake Factory, that menu is off the charts. What am I supposed to order?
Yeah. Well, I could literally order anything from there. Like Cheesecake Factory, you can get spaghetti, you could get a burger, you can get a steak. Yeah. So I think that employers, I feel like everybody's got it down. Everybody that cares about it has got it down. We've been talking about brand for now 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal.
So on the recruiter side, so for all your recruiters, that are sourcing and putting your messages together, if you are not taking advantage of your marketing team or looking at what they've developed and looking at their socials and not putting that into your outreach messages, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Like for sure. You have to do that. I'm a giant in video, obviously, but it's like, hey, doing a quick video on that is great. If I'm going to be talking to the hiring manager and let's say they're struggling, you talk to the hiring manager, exactly what we talked about. Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, why do you work here?
Yeah.
Tell me why you work here. Now I'm going to go put that into my outreach message.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're going to showcase some really great players at your team or showcase your hiring manager in your message. I mean, those things are so powerful. We talk about all the time. Why do people join companies? They join people lots of times, but that's why the employer brand is starting to shine through employees, like having employee spotlights. This is what it's like to work here. You know, that's why they're doing those things, because they realize the key motivators for a lot of people are people.
Yeah. I think the other thing with that is that you have to actually like live out the brand. You know, you can't say, oh, you know, we care about our people. We're people centric. You know, like all of this stuff, right? That we just care so much about our people. And then when you're in the interview, you know, say you're in a panel interview with 3 people and everybody's looking down, nobody's making eye contact, nobody's, you know, like these are the things where I'm talking about like, and maybe I should have saved that for a broke to boss tip, but you actually have to live out what you're saying your culture and your brand is. It can't be something that is truly just for show on social media, because candidates will know and they will pick up on it very early.
You got to walk the walk. That's for sure.
Yeah. Talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you. I was like, you know, I'm bad at saying. Just finish it for me.
I got you.
Thank you. Okay. So I would say the best messages I get are either the voicemail or video. But additionally, I think what's really cool is to have people talk about like the actual impact of what they're building. And I think that still goes to brand marketing, right? You know, so like, oh my God, I love a 1-pager, or I love something that I can just look at and it's just visually appealing and also has some like, you know, punches to it. It's like, it's this and it's that and it's that. And I was like, oh, great. Because in theory, in order to get someone excited about a job, you need what, 4 sentences?
Yeah.
Because all you need to do is get them excited. So then now you can talk to them and you get the resume, and it's like that whole process. But, you know, what's interesting to me is that, and we talk about all the time, recruiters are brand ambassadors, right? Whether or not they're internal or external. Like that's one of my sells actually for contingency. It's like, look, I'm literally doing marketing for you for free. Like, because every message that I put out, like that's a potential customer, you know, and so on and so forth. But I'm surprised that, and you're more corporate, so I want to hear your take on this, is that marketing and recruiters aren't like best friends, like on a regular basis. I feel like that department should live in the same zone.
Yeah. It's
What are your thoughts?
I've only ever worked at 2 companies, one of them being yours, where that was the case. And it was the other one, it was even in a different capacity. The capacity was like, if we got, you know, in the sales cycle, if we were getting close to closing the client, that's when we really worked with marketing. It was primarily to just come up with our decks, our presentation decks for the different, because the sales cycles are longer, you know, it was the pitch deck. So it wasn't even like day-to-day marketing, you know, for candidate outreach or anything like that. It was marketing more for marketing material, more for the clients than anything. And so maybe I haven't actually worked at a company that had more focus on putting together things specifically for candidates, you know, that is like, this is just to attract candidates to coming to work to our organization. But I do think what's powerful to me are some of the things that you said is like, when they talk about what gets them excited, because I feel like, you know, when you go through an interview and you're in these panels, like everybody's got their designated questions that they're supposed to ask.
Right.
You don't really see anybody's eyes kind of light up until they get to the part where the candidate gets to ask them questions.
Right.
And it depends on obviously what the questions are. But when you get them talking about, why are you working here? Why have you been here 7 years? What gets you excited to come to this? However you want to word it. But that's where I think that you'll get some good answers and you'll get some real insight into what the culture is like. But I do think there's other ways. And I think employers just have to keep in mind of this, or keep this in mind, is that there's other ways in which you show how your culture is. And it's, again, it's not just in the social media. You have to actually live it. You can't say you have this culture, this amazing whatever, and then all the Glassdoor reviews say something else. Your interview, it's getting canceled. You know, you've canceled on this candidate 3 times and then rescheduled, and then nobody gives eye contact and they're rushing through the interview. Like all of those things, you're not actually living the brand that you say that you guys represent, you know, your brand, your culture, and mission, whatever it is. So I've seen that happen actually a lot with companies that claim to be very people-centric. And I mean, I'm not knocking any of these because I've worked with some great hiring managers who just have like a million things on their plate. And so they were just trying to multitask during an interview. But at the end of the day, I mean, Yeah, it is the worst. It is the absolute worst. And I think, I'll go into my broke to boss tip and then we can continue to talk. But I do think it's everybody's responsibility that interacts with that candidate to represent the brand and the culture, whatever that is. It's every single person's responsibility. And so I think you can have the most amazing brand on social media, but if you're not living that every day in your interactions with candidates, or if their interactions with you contradict what your brand presence is or what the brand is that you're trying to establish or feel you have established or represent, then it doesn't matter how sexy your social media looks or how many, different people you've got showcased a day in the life. Like all of that, a candidate's could be like, that's just bullshit because I just lived, what their real culture is, what their real brand is. And it's not people first.
So something that I've seen that is going through LinkedIn and seems a little controversial is because we talked about the most powerful thing is coming from the employees themselves, right? So now companies are putting into their KPIs being involved on posting on LinkedIn certain things about the brand. And again, that helps and gets hiring costs down because, the more you get it out there, the easier it is, right? Stronger your brand, easier to hire, essentially. What are your thoughts on making that a requirement to employees to post on LinkedIn?
Again, if you had asked me this question a year ago, I'd probably have a different answer. I think you shouldn't require people to post anything. I think people have to post what feels authentic to them. And I think if you have a horrible culture, if you really do, and then you're making people have to go and on LinkedIn and post how amazing it is and just lie, that's not okay.
Well, no, let's say it's like they talk the talk, walk the walk. They're a great brand. And they're like, look, great, to work here, we want to make sure our brand is strong. And we want to make sure that you're interacting with our posts on LinkedIn, that you're liking, you're commenting, you're involved in our brand. That's a requirement.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it's truly something, but then it's like, why wouldn't they be doing those things anyway? If they really do like the company and value the company and it is like that. It's not, why are you having to force people to do it?
Well, I think a lot of people don't want to post on LinkedIn or don't feel like their voice is heard or don't have a voice. Or, I look at it as something similar to networking, where it's like, people freeze at networking events.
Yeah. I just kind of look at it like, think about something that you absolutely hate to do if that's not your shit. And then you're like, I'm an engineer. Why do I have to do this? This doesn't feel comfortable to me. This is not authentic to me. I think if you're going to do that as a company, I think you should identify the appropriate individual. Like if you want one person per department or something like that, you should identify the appropriate individual, have a conversation with them. Would you be willing to do this? And it should be somebody that already is doing all this anyway. And you're like, oh, this person would really represent our brand really well, on LinkedIn. I think trying to force everyone to do it, I just think it just feels like anything else that you're forcing people to do. It's like, it's over time. It's going to feel forced. It's not going to feel authentic. It's going to feel like shit. It's just another thing I got to do to come up with a blurb of what I want to say. And then I know most companies that do this, they have certain criteria and boundaries and guidelines and all of that. It's very specific of what you can and can't say. And so when it gets too like that, it's like, I would think as an employee, okay, this is that's not my problem. I don't want to have to deal with that. I want to post what's authentic to me, not what you're requiring me to post within these guidelines and parameters. It's like, it's not authentic at that point.
I will say there's definitely certain companies that have too much red tape that I would want nothing to do with it. I'm not going to go run this by legal and marketing to make sure I'm good. But I will say, I do think it's the job of hiring managers.
Yeah.
I think that should be included in their job. Because if they're looking to hire, they want to get their team out, their brand out, they should very much be dedicated to that. I don't think they have to be this constant, influencer on LinkedIn. I definitely don't think that. But I do think that they should be required to make at least a post a week. I would say I think that's pretty minimal if they're hiring. And they want dedicated recruiters because as a recruiter, I'm going to want my hiring manager involved.
Yeah. Well, and then I think that's something too that's I know I've asked hiring managers to post things before on LinkedIn or just, sponsor their job or highlight their job or showcase their job or whatever. And that's always, I've never had that backfire. That's always gone over well, but it's not something that I asked of them initially. It was after the relationship developed as hey, I think this could be really helpful if you posted this. Because I'm just trying to think about the different hiring managers that I've worked with in the different verticals. And it's no, that's not everybody is a marketing person. So not everybody is comfortable doing that. And, it's like 9 times out of 10, what they told me is like, yeah, happy to just send me exactly what you want me to post.
I was going to say, you send them what you want them to post and bam, there it goes. Like I know Kate, who does our brand and marketing, for like, if you're a podcast guest, for example, it's like, look, you can roll on your own. You can post whatever you want, to talk about your episode, be excited about it. She's like, if you don't want to, here's a recommended post.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool way to do it, because from my side, I'm like, sweet, I actually just won this crazy award. This came out of nowhere. I won a top TA woman of the year.
Oh yeah.
Crazy. And they sent me like verbatim of what to post. And there's 5 other, women on this list. And I'm thinking to myself, are these 5 other women going to post the same shit? Like, that's not how I roll, right? Like, I'm an individual.
Yeah.
like I don't do that. So, and Kate was even like, you don't want to do that, do you? I'm like, no. So I come up with, within a little bit of what they're pondering, right? And roll with my own post. And sure as shit, I saw 500 people post the same exact thing that they had wanted me to post. So I'm super happy that I didn't play that game. I don't know if they were happy, but like the whole point, like to what you were saying on social media, it's like, your voice is your voice. No one can change your voice, and nor should you let anyone do it. But if you want help getting jobs out and stuff like that, by all means ask. And the recruiter for sure is more than happy to do that for you, because it makes our job easier.
Yeah. And I do think that like, if you have because it all starts from the top down, like I think that's definitely direction that has to come from leadership, that you have to be involved in like posting, and you have to be involved in the marketing, and you have to post like that criteria. Like that's something that their boss would have to, if you think about any of the people that you could be hiring for, C-suite directors, whoever, like it's got to be their boss that has to dictate that. But then I also do think that I just don't know, because companies have dedicated marketing teams and whatnot, I don't know that they would ever, like that being a part of a hiring manager's goals where they actually like were reprimanded for that or something. I'm just thinking about an engineering team. I'm like, they don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And that may feel very inauthentic and very uncomfortable to them. And so I think that companies could run into some issues there depending upon the type of person. That's why I'm saying like every department for that most part has like that one charismatic person, that one like, that you're like,
I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't think that's a tech person. Like you're so, or I would never expect that you're accounting and finance person. Like they're just chatty. There's like somebody that could be a designated person and, that's part of their goals. But I think asking everybody to do it is a little much. But I do think as the recruiter, if you get to a place with a hiring manager where you have that relationship, and like I said, 9 times out of 10, I've never had them say no, actually. But they always just say, just send me exactly what you want me to post, because they don't want to have to think about it.
Right. Totally.
I think that's a big thing. They don't want to have to think about it or overthink about it. Like, what am I going to say? I'm not good at this. This doesn't come natural to me. So I think if you take the work out of it for them, it's like, sure, I'll post that on my LinkedIn or whatever.
Yep, 100%. And then you can feature it. And then going back to the other episode, if you guys haven't listened to that, is, whose fault is a bad hire? The consensus was it's everyone's job, right? It's everyone's problem. So this goes to hiring is everyone's job, every single person's job,
Yeah. And representing the brand well. So that could be our brand boss tip is like, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Representing the brand that you're trying to showcase is everyone's responsibility. However that looks like. So it doesn't mean necessarily posting. It's just representing the brand that the company's trying so hard to showcase is everyone's responsibility, whether that's in the job postings, the interview process, any communications with the candidate. Always like show up your best self. It's everybody's responsibility to make sure they're living that brand.
Love it. All right, guys. So don't forget. Oh, she's shimmying here. She thanks. Like normally you shimmy in the beginning. So you guys, we're trying to blast through reviews this month. So please review this podcast, whether you love it or super love it. Is tell us.
Or you hate it. Tell us that too.
I almost said that. I was like, I don't know if I want to hear you hate it. Maybe dislike it. I'm okay with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just words. So whatever word you want to use, it probably isn't going to change how we feel about the content that we put out. But I mean, I actually do appreciate people providing us with their insight, opinions, and even different episodes. Like, what is something you want us to talk about, or what is some information you'd like us to crowdsource from people? Is there something that's on your mind, something you've been wondering about? You want us to put up a poll or post some questions and then have an episode about it. So yeah, I mean, we're here to do the love work, guys. So
love the interaction. All right, we'll see you next week.
thanks, y'all.